Winter 1992, a time of momentous change in the former Soviet Union. Nature's cameras travel there, and we invite you to join us for a very special presentation. Hi, I'm George Page, and with me is Dr. Nikolai Drozdov. Nikolai is a Russian naturalist and host of a nature program seen here by millions of Russians. His program is called In the World of Animals, and he joins us as our guide as we begin the first time ever comprehensive look at the natural history of the former Soviet Union.
Thank you, George. I am so pleased and excited to be working with you to show America and the rest of the world the natural beauty of my country. Its great mountains, its baking hot deserts, huge inland seas, and vast forests full of fascinating wildlife. You know, perestroika and glasnost have revealed many of our problems, but it's also allowed us to show you another Russia, the Russia beyond the politics, the one which resides in the hearts of the Russian people.
And so we now begin the first of 6 episodes as we explore the many realms of the Russian bear.
Nature is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you, your gas company, and the gas industry, meeting America's needs by providing abundant supplies of clean natural gas for this generation and for generations to come. Siemens, a whole new world of ideas in electronics and electrical engineering. Siemens, precision thinking. And by Canon, quality and innovation for the way we work and live. Canon.
The vast expanse of the former Soviet Union covers 1/6 of the land surface of our planet. Its northern shore is bounded by the Arctic Ocean and stretches nearly halfway round the world, across 11 time zones. The winters are long and bitterly cold. This is the realm of the great white bear. In our 6 programs, we'll cover many different regions, including the Arctic. This frozen Arctic frontier merges with the biggest forest in the world. A carpet of hardy conifers called the Saiga runs from Scandinavia all the way across Siberia to the Pacific Ocean, covering more than 1/3 of the country. The forests are far from empty. Even though they're hunted, wolves are common here. These immense forests give them lots of space, many places to hide from people. Also padding through the northern forests are lynx. and European bison. But the czars of these forests are the brown bears. The symbol of Russia. 100,000 of them live in this country. It's the greatest population of brown bears in the world. So this is, indeed, the realm of the bear. Most of them sleep through the winter, but a few remain restless and are very bad-tempered. To the south, the forest gives way to the boundless steppes. The steppe region rolls east from the border with Western Europe to Mongolia. Here in the center of the continent, it's too dry for trees to grow. Only grasses and small shrubs take root. Big herds migrate across these grassy plains for hundreds of miles. Saiga, a unique kind of antelope, seek the best grazing on the steppes of Kazakhstan. The calves are born in May when the grass is fresh, enabling the females to produce plenty of nourishing milk. The Saiga is designed for the steppes. Its bulbous nose filters out the dust, and during winter warms and moistens the frosty air. 1 million of them range across the steppes of Kazakhstan and Kalmykia. Even farther south in Central Asia stretches the greatest expanse of desert in the world. We'll explore the plants and animals of the desert in a later program when we journey to Badkris on the border with Afghanistan. The Tian Shan, or Celestial Mountains, on the remote frontier with China. Snow leopards roam these icy peaks. Although seldom seen, there are about 1,000 of these big cats. There's also a unique pale race of the brown bear. These animals share the Tian Shan with many tribal people and their domestic animals, like the yak. Lake Baikal in southern Siberia, the largest freshwater lake in the world, where great numbers of Russian bears come to fish. And beyond Siberia, Kamchatka. Kamchatka is part of the Ring of Fire, a line of volcanic activity that girdles the Pacific Ocean. With 33 active volcanoes and many geysers, it's one of the most spectacular regions of the former Soviet Union. The rivers run with several kinds of spawning salmon. These sockeye salmon are prey for the biggest Russian bears, which in Kamchatka grow to the size of Alaskan grizzlies. To explore all these regions, we join our Russian host, Dr. Nikolai Drozdov. We begin way to the west, in European Russia, on the edge of the Caspian Sea.
Here in the Soviet Union is the largest inland sea on our planet, the Caspian. Unlike its neighbor, the Black Sea, which opens into the Mediterranean via the Bosporus, the Caspian is completely enclosed and has no access to the oceans of the world. Actually, the surface on which I am floating is 27 meters below the world sea level. The Caspian is fed chiefly by the Volga, one of our great rivers. It starts life more than 2,000 miles away in northern Russia. Here, where the Volga comes and meets the Caspian, it splits into more than 800 channels and forms an immense fertile delta.
The river Volga is the architect of this fertile landscape. It has deposited huge quantities of sediment on the northern edge of the Caspian Sea, forming a great sprawling delta 125 miles across. This maze of channels, reed beds, and lagoons is a naturalist's paradise.
This is one of the best places in the world for wetland birds. And now, under international protection, over 3,000 pairs of mute swans nest here. Fish abound in the shallow water of the northern Caspian, and they're food for cormorants. About 100,000 breed on the delta. They construct their nests of sticks well above the water level. Several kinds of fish-eating birds form mixed colonies here. The night heron hunts at dusk. But the gray heron fishes during the hours of daylight. Nearly 4,000 pairs of gray herons breed in the Volga Delta. It's a common species found right the way across Russia. By early April, all the birds in the colonies have eggs. Other creatures appear during the first days of spring. Grass snakes like the water, where they can find their favorite prey, marsh frogs. I have often picked up these snakes to take home to study. In defense, they expel a strong, unpleasant odor. They are not poisonous, but since they have many small, sharp teeth, their bites can be quite painful, but I would never blame one for biting me. Here, many males are trying to mate with one female. She excites them by her scent, which she leaves on the ground wherever she slithers. Above them, a pair of pendulum teats are busy building. They are amazingly skilled architects and are making a hanging home. To begin with, they construct a ring of twisted fibers. The birds take 3 weeks to complete their purse-shaped home. This is the halfway stage.
The abundant wildlife of the Volga Delta is dependent upon the spring floods. The river Volga is the lifeblood of the delta. Each spring, melting snows from the north swell the river, and the Volga overflows. The floods cover large areas of the countryside and deposit huge amounts of nourishing silt. For a month or two, aquatic creatures like carp move into the flooded fields.
They spawn in the shallows, each female laying over 1 million eggs. Some get stranded and are scavenged by white-tailed sea eagles. These birds are one of the most formidable predators in this region. The eaglets are now 4 weeks old, and for several months they'll depend upon their parents. For the past 20 years, I've been coming to the Caspian with my students. We study bird colonies and their migrations. By putting identification bands on their legs, we've learned that cormorants and herons often return to the same tree, to the same nest year after year. We don't band the adults, but only their youngsters who can't fly away. When I approach the nest, the parents set up their defense. They regurgitate gooey fish on my head, hoping that will chase me away. I must admit it almost did, but I am a dedicated scientist. Egret plumes were once as valuable as gold. To protect these birds from hunters, part of the Volga Delta was established as the Astrakhan Nature Reserve. A glossy ibis, as the sun sets, the chorus of birds dies down. Evening brings in a new chorus, the voices of frogs. Each frog has its own song, and tonight millions of marsh frogs serenade their future mates. I have often become lost in the confusing maze of these channels and felt I wouldn't reach my shelter before sunset. The damp vegetation and shallow water causes an explosion of insects. Mosquitoes and midges rise in such swarms and have often made my life miserable when I came here to birdwatch. Just to the north of the Caspian Sea, the Saiga antelope are roaming the steppes of Kalmykia. No antelope lives as far north as the Saiga. They were once overhunted for their skin and meat. Their horns were sent to the Orient for medicine. By the end of World War II, only 200 Saiga were left in the wild. Conservation efforts have made the Saiga our biggest success story. Today we have 2 million of them. Their migration takes them across 250 miles and back each year. These calves will learn the migration route from their mothers and can't afford to get lost or left behind. The steppe eagle looks like a formidable predator, but it's not after Saiga calves. It feeds its young, smaller prey, like rodents.
When the weather turns cold, the eagle and the antelope will leave the steppes. The Saiga will only go as far south as the Caspian, but the eagle will fly on to the warmth of Africa. By mid-May, the flooded pastures and the wooded margins of the waterways are at their prettiest. The air resonates with birdsong.
The white-tailed sea eaglets are 2 months old, and each now requires 1 big fish a day. But they are still only offered the tenderest morsels. That's too bony, perhaps. But the food is a bit lively today. They'll have to learn how to subdue struggling fish. 3 sparrows lodge in the eagle's bulky nest. Regular exercise strengthens their flight muscles. Down below, the pendulum tits are putting the finishing touches to their amazing home. The nest hangs over the water by a narrow stalk and is almost impregnable. Now the pair can begin to breed. By the end of May, the lagoons are strewn with dazzling water lilies, and the aquatic life is very active. A new generation of damselflies emerges from the water. They've spent 2 years as aquatic larvae. Now they pursue their courtship with a sense of urgency. The dusky-winged males compete for the greenish females. Although they mate on the waterside vegetation, the females go under the water to deposit their eggs. After mating, the males keep hold of their partners, but get dragged beneath the surface. Soon they'll come up again. Down below, billions of microscopic creatures are locked in a struggle for existence. The tepid water stimulates the breeding of planktonic animals like water fleas. These are captured by hydra, minute polyps, whose arms are furnished with deadly harpoons. The plankton supports many fish, including sticklebacks, roach, perch, and carp. The young carp have now moved from the flooded pastures into deeper water, and the male pipefish is about to give birth. It's related to the seahorses, and like them, the male receives his mate's spawn into a pouch beneath his belly. Eventually his brood joins the plankton. The marine ancestors of pipefish must have come here a long time ago, when the Caspian Sea had a connection with the Mediterranean. Altogether, 50 kinds of fishes live in the murky but fertile waters of the Volga Delta. On the floating lily pads, young grass snakes are on the prowl. They are barely the size of shoelaces, but to their tiny prey, they are deadly. They are after tadpoles. Such is a competition for food that even a tadpole in the mouth is safe until it's swallowed. These water gardens are favored by whiskered terns, which fly all the way from Africa to nest in them. They make their nests among the water lilies.
The lilies are buoyant enough to support the birds, and later on, the lagoons will provide plenty of food for their nestlings. A different community of birds breeds in the extensive reed beds that surround the lagoons. The rich mud and warm summer climate of the Caspian encourage the reeds to grow up to 15 feet high, ideal for purple herons. The thick stands of reeds are excellent cover for the chicks. About 2,500 pairs of purple herons nest in the Volga Delta, protected inside the Astrakhan Nature Reserve, Russia's oldest refuge for wildlife.
Vladimir Lenin himself signed the decree in 1990. As you can see, he did do some good things. Beyond the reeds, in the deep channels of the busy river Volga, the spring floods trigger the spawning migration of the sturgeon. These impressive fish spend most of their lives in the brackish Caspian Sea, but shed their eggs in the upper reaches of the Volga. They hug the bottom, grabbing for worms, mollusks, and small fish, which they locate with their highly sensitive barbels. They then suck up their food with their telescopic mouths. Sturgeon are the sole survivors of an ancient group of fishes that lived over 100 million years ago. But in the Caspian, several kinds prosper like nowhere else on Earth. But many of these sturgeon fail to get very far up the Volga on their spawning run.
These fishermen are intent on catching female sturgeon, the source of that essentially Russian product, caviar. It's a profitable business and employs about 1,000 people. The fishery is maintained by releasing 100 million young sturgeon into the Caspian every year. The fishing boats move up the Volga to the spawning grounds in pursuit of females laden with eggs. Nothing is wasted, but the valuable roes are given special treatment on board the floating factory ships. Each year, about 1,000 tons of these delicious black pearls of the Caspian are collected. Most caviar is exported for foreign currency.
Fish also support the seabirds of Жемчужный, a strip of sand 50 miles out to sea. The most spectacular of these are the great black-headed gulls. They're almost a Russian specialty, virtually confined to the Caspian. 10,000 pairs breed on this island. That's nearly half the world population. Like most gulls, these birds steal from each other. So the parents hang on to their partially digested fish, while their youngsters take their fill. Among the gulls are giant terns. Caspian terns are the largest of their kind. They are like big sea gulls. Despite their name, they are found on all continents except Antarctica and South America. "2,000 pairs nest on Жемчужный, and by June the adults have got young mouths to feed. These hefty terns catch large fish and often return with too big a mouthfuls for their offspring. Caspian herrings feature largely in their diet. They are marine fish and must have entered the Caspian when it was once connected to the open sea. The seabirds of Жемчужный have to compete for fish with Caspian seals. To a gull chick, a seal must look enormous, but they're quite small, just over 3 feet long, and one of the smallest seals in the world. He's okay.
The Caspian Sea is about 800 miles from the nearest ocean. How did seals get this far inland? The Caspian was once much larger and connected to the Black Sea, which opens out to the Mediterranean. By July, the water level in the delta is at its lowest. There's a touch of the Orient as the lotus start to bloom. A native of Southeast Asia, in Russia, lotus grows only in the Caspian and on the eastern border with China. It thrives in shallow water, drawing nourishment from the organic sediment brought here by the Volga.
Beneath the surface, the drama between predators and their prey continues. The larvae of great diving beetles are voracious killers. The predator injects a corrosive mixture of digestive juices through its hollow fangs, which liquefy the victim's flesh. Then it sucks the fluid into its own stomach, leaving only an empty shell. But some get their comeuppance from above. The whiskered terns have hatched, and the chicks are appealing for food. The parents bring a continuous supply of aquatic larvae, including those of diving beetles. They also catch small fish and damselflies. The sea eagles are now nearly ready to fly, and both parents bring food to the nest. In Western Europe, these eagles were almost exterminated, but in my country there are about 2,000 pairs. A 150 pairs nest in the delta, 30 within the Astrakhan Nature Reserve. This year, the floods have lingered longer than usual, and there's been a good supply of fish, so both eaglets have survived to the point of fledging. They're strong enough to move around the tree, but haven't yet plucked up the courage to launch themselves into the air. Now that they're fully grown, they're competing for every scrap of food.
Inside the nature reserve, the prospect for these young birds is good, thanks to the effort of the wardens. German Rusanov is one of them. Although wildfowl are his special interest, he'll be very pleased that another brood of eaglets is about to fledge. Because of protection, many birds that were formerly persecuted by fishermen have flourished here.
When I first came to Astrakhan, I was 17 and on a school trip. I was already a bird lover, but Astrakhan took my breath away. The incredible numbers and variety of waterfowl was and still is incomparable to any place I've ever seen.
Astrakhan isn't merely a sanctuary, it's also a staging post of international importance for long-distance seasonal migrants. The early morning mist hints at autumn. But the tranquility of the scene belies the fact that this is the busiest time of the year.
Our harsh winter drives millions of wildfowl out of much of Russia, and many of them settle here for a while to molt, feed, and rest. Each year, 7 million migrants benefit from the riches bestowed on the delta by the river Volga. These are mostly gray-lag geese. Some are local, but others have come thousands of miles from eastern Siberia. They are attracted to the lotus beds. Although the foliage is now dying back, the succulent roots and seed pods are full of goodness, and the shallow water makes them accessible. Such rich food provides the protein for new feathers and body fat, the fuel needed for flying long distances. Thousands of great white egrets feast on fish before migrating to the southern Caspian and the Middle East. Stirring the water with their feet brings prey to the surface.
These birds will soon resume their journeys and go their separate ways. The cormorants are on their way to the Persian Gulf. Snipe, too, are heading south. Teal that summered in the Russian Arctic will winter in Western Europe. Ruddy shelduck, a Central Asian species, will spend the winter in the southern Caspian. The rare Dalmatian pelican en route to Iran. Once their strength and plumage are renewed, the birds put their new feathers to the test and fly south to escape the encroaching Russian winter. This year's young sea eagles are now independent and scavenging on the shore for dead birds and stranded fish. When the weather turns for the worse, they may also have to leave the security of Astrakhan. But before the winds from Siberia reach here, there's another wave of visitors.
Hooper swans breed in the Arctic. They've flown all the way across Russia. Now they're in a hurry to reach this refuge. Their great angel wings have borne them several thousand miles from the northern tundra to these welcoming lagoons. They travel in family groups. The parents are never far from their fully grown cygnets. The shallow water is ideal for swans. Their long necks enable them to reach the underwater roots and tubers. In late autumn, before the water freezes, 120,000 wild swans may have dropped into the Volga Delta. And now, visitors from the north arrive. Saiga antelope in thick, woolly coats to protect them from the cold. The Kalmykian herd has finally reached the Caspian shores, the southernmost point of its annual trek. They've come just in time to witness a great spectacle. Thousands of swans rising from the waters of the Caspian, Russia's paradise for birds.
As the ice advances, the swans set course for the southern Caspian, the Black Sea, and the Mediterranean. Soon, Siberia's icy breath will send the temperature plunging. All will be encased in frost, and the green jewel of the Caspian will sparkle like a diamond. As Realms of the Russian Bear continues, we journey to regions that were off limits during the Cold War.
My country is so vast and diverse. I invite you to come with me on a journey of discovery. I too had never been to some of these places. These icy peaks run along our border with China. We were allowed to film here for the first time. We'll travel to the Siberian wilderness, to the hot, dry Central Asian desert. And next time on Realms of the Russian Bear, to the top of the world.
Join us next time for the Arctic Frontier.
Nature is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you. Siemens, a whole new world of ideas in electronics and electrical engineering. Siemens, precision thinking. And by Canon, quality and innovation for the way we work and live. Canon. And by the gas industry, helping provide cleaner air with clean gas energy.
This is PBS.